Okay. So I will give you a brief context or a brief background to the art piece that we are going to discuss tonight. And these building parts contains healthcare and treatment of different kinds, and they are made to be simple and flexible and general building solutions. In this part we have put the auditorium and the seminar rooms, educational facilities, and by putting them there we are a lot freer in terms of design. This is also marks the entrance of the building, and one main aim of this process or this design has been to make this entrance as easy to find and easy to use as possible. It is the art piece where we try to make art and architecture blend into one thing. We want it to be impossible to say which is what.
I try to usually work so that I understand what the context is, what the space is, and how it's how people are supposed to live it. It's I'm interested on the kind of like conventional way of how people see the space, or conventional perception of space, and what we expect there to be. And it was interesting that they had in mind also the orientation, that you kind of understand immediately how this space should be used. And in my artistic practice I try to make some surprise to that kind of like orientation, and that was the starting point, and I found that there was a lot of common interests to start with, and so we had our collaboration started with discussing what this context is and what the different cubes present. So without the brick volumes kind of present the safety, the nursing, and taking care of people, and then the glass volume that is then made also of more modern construction technique, or more modern material glass, and it's transparent and it presents science and future, kind of the possibility of change, and that things develop, and it creates trust in another way to people, that we try to create better treatments in this space. That was kind of the starting point.
Frida, do you think that you can explain a little bit more clear, what is it about? How is it built? Which are the different parts in this art and architecture?
The art piece contains of, we have the auditorium volume inside, and we don't actually have any drawings on the walls here because we are in the middle of this project. But the art piece contains of the auditorium walls and also the surrounding facade of the whole building. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could explain what it does.
Mm-hmm. So you have the glass cube, and then which contains of double glass facade, and then we have the inside that an auditorium volume. This is it's kind of has rounded corners, and there's the auditorium inside, and so between the facade and the auditorium there's this kind of public area. And suggesting here for the kind of surprise that I mentioned was to work somehow with the inside and outside, and to actually bring the outside in. And how this functions here is that we are placing sensors that detect colors and possibly the color of light, and that is just very directly brought into this LED light wall. And the facade glass has a sandblasting that is first semi-transparent and comes down to clear, so it also affects how you see to outside, but the material has the quality of kind of catching the light, as it has little crumbles, sandblasted, so it reflects, and therefore when you're outside you will see the cube kind of in a misty light, which changes all the time according to the surrounding light. So it's always kind of reacting to what's going on outside. I think how people can experience the piece is little by little, that it's not some work that you kind of like at once think something happened that wow, but it's more for Uppsala people who live here and come often pass by, that they start to see that it's changed, it's different today than yesterday or so.
Then I think that we could begin to talk a little bit about your cooperation and what has it meant for you? What is the special with this project?
I think that as architects, we are very used to collaborating. We are doing it all the time. We are collaborating with colleagues and with specialists of different kinds. So we are used to collaborating, but this collaborating in the design process is quite new to us, I think. And of course we were quite scared at first, at least before we started off. And the whole thing started with a process of selecting the artists, and we were involved in this process, of course. And I think that was very important to find the right form of collaboration, and also to find someone that we would be able to work together with.
As Frida mentioned, we were nervous in the beginning here. Inviting somebody we have never met into, deep into the design process, that's a risk, of course. Still, it seemed like a good idea. We could get a new point of view here, and we could get more competence really to work with the central part, very visible part of the building, and to give it a stronger identity. So that was of course an attractive possibility. But this interview process that Frida mentioned was very important, and when we have started this collaboration and we have gotten quite far with it, it's hard to point out what aspects of that situation that was important, but I obviously some of them were, because in my opinion we absolutely found the right artist for this piece, and it has so far been very interesting to work in this way, and I think it has been interesting in ways that I did not entirely expect. It did seem like a good idea, but we couldn't really predict what would come out of it. We had some idea about what this part of the building would, what we wanted it to express. As Sari mentioned, something if the brick volumes had to do with the security and the feeling of taking good care of patients and that kind of things, this would be a different kind of message somehow. That this building also contains absolute, the sharpest treatments that is available, and therefore we need to express this science aspect or research aspect somehow. So that we were clear on that, and we thought that we could use a more traditional material for the brick volumes. Brick obviously is a material everybody knows, and everybody knows it will last. But and this for this volume we use glass, which is a more traditionally modern material. So this was clear, but Sari's suggestion to use sensors and to capture the surroundings and bring the surroundings to give this part of the building its character, that was completely new, and we had never gotten that idea ourselves. And I think that was a very interesting thing. I think also that this deepened the contrast between the building parts, whereas the brick volumes is very permanent. Brick, they will look the same for hundreds of years, whereas this changes daily. It's very sensitive to its surroundings. There's something, in my opinion, very nice about that contrast.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Sari's point of view it like added something to our design that really made it take that extra step that we couldn't have done without you.
I think the collaboration, if you think public art in general, I think in this is very special that I could work with architects from the beginning on. And often, what I know of public art, mainly you've chosen you don't choose artists, but you choose a proposal. So it limits the possibility already from the beginning on quite much. And often the place is told to an artist. And for example, for artists like me, it's an impossible setting that I would be told that you have to make something here, because I'm interested of the space and how you experience it. So this was a really incredible possibility actually for me, and it's so you can kind of fit the art within the architecture, and the art is actually happening between the viewer or the visitor and the place, rather than being some object that you look at.
I think that architecture is something that rarely is the object of attention in the same way as art. I mean, we are here tonight to look at art pieces, basically. One of them is a collaboration with architecture, but generally it's art. And we look at them and they are objects, and we can see them as separate pieces. And we are at the same time inside architecture, but nobody reflects on that. This is the building we are inside. And that aspect of architecture, I think, is interesting because I think it suits your art in a sense. It's somehow an integral part of the reality that is typically not so reflected upon, and this I think works very nicely with what you are expressing in your art.
Usually we just provide like the space, and then we don't really get a lot from the artist back. And in this collaboration, we get something as well.
Hasn't there been any problem with it? Do you think this is the best option to work?
I think there are some things that, when it's still different, professional, different architecture and art. So in the discourse, there are some things that we are keeping as obvious, and in our working culture, and also in a way we use the professional language in a way.
None of the things we were worried about from the beginning has been a problem. I think that, of course, we don't agree on everything, but that's an essential part. Disagreeing is an essential part, I think, of any good design process, and also for this one. And maybe I don't know what we were afraid of before we started it. Losing control. Yes. Yeah. And somehow I think that collaboration, of course, a good collaboration means that you don't have control in the same way you would have if you were the only player, obviously. But that is also the positive dynamics of it. It can come something good out of it only if you let go a little bit. And yeah, I think
I could add that we are in the middle of this project, so we still have plenty of challenges left to face. But it's been very interesting so far, I think, and I'm very much looking forward to continue this collaboration.